Welcome back. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Our big focus is how External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has once again delivered a sharp rebuke to the West, accusing European nations of double standards when it comes to global morality, trade and security. Responding to criticism over India's purchase of Russian oil, Jaishankar reminded Western governments that market realities, not moral lectures, often drive policy decisions. He pointed out that European countries themselves absorbed large volumes of Middle Eastern oil, forcing countries like India to seek alternative supplies. Jaishankar also says that the United States in the year 2022 told India to buy Russian oil to stabilize global markets, and in 2025 impose sanctions on us on the same. The minister also took aim at what he called Europe's historical inconsistency on security issues. In one of his strongest remarks, Jaishankar said while European countries have sold weapons that were later used against India, no European country has been attacked with Indian weapons. The statement underscored New Delhi's long-standing argument that India's security concerns are often viewed differently from Europe's. His comments also come amidst fresh tensions over trade after the US proposed a 12.5% tariff on certain Indian imports. The message from New Delhi is clear. Global powers cannot invoke principles selectively while expecting others to ignore their own strategic interests. Joining us live, Dr. Sharat Kohli, economist. Also with us, Major General Sudhakarji, geopolitical expert. Avantika Kansal, geopolitical expert, also joins us live. Sumit Peer, political commentator, is joining us. Ambassador Vinay Sikri, former diplomat, also is joining the broadcast. Ambassador Sikri, quite a message that S. Jaishankar has sent out to Europe. What do you make of this tough talking by the foreign minister while in Europe?
Well, I think that, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar has been traveling to Europe, has been interacting with them in recent times, and he's been absolutely correct and unequivocal in explaining to Europe the areas in which they maintain double standards, but then they want to call out other countries. For example, what he said this time, when he was asked about why we are purchasing Russian oil, he explained the whole background and said it is actually the USA which asked India to purchase Russian oil to balance the world prices. But he said you should have it both ways around. Why don't you see that Europe is supplying weapons to other countries and those weapons are being used against India? And earlier on, a few months ago, when Dr. Jaishankar was in Europe and a similar question was asked to him, he said, look, what happens in Europe should be important for the rest of the world, but the other way around is not true. Europe doesn't bother about what India's interests are and doesn't respect India's sensitivities in many issues that they deal with. So I think that there is an important reset in India's relations with Europe. We're working on a free trade agreement, and we already have the EFTA with a few smaller countries. We are giving a lot of importance to our relationship with Europe, but it's absolutely vital, as Dr. Jaishankar has done, to call them out whenever they are maintaining double standards, because they do it all the time. They're dealing with so many countries of the world, and there's so many countries in Europe as well, that some leaders in Europe will be saying things against India, others will say, no, we want to be friends with India, and yet another group, is now talking about, like in Finland, talking about why are you purchasing Russian oil, because Finland, of course, now is a member of NATO, so they've suddenly changed the whole fabric of their relationship with Russia. Because earlier on, they had, being a bordering country, they were, quite wary and quite happy to work out a viable relationship. But now their approach is completely different. So I think Dr. Jaishankar has done exactly the right thing by calling them out and telling them that you should also look at issues which are of concern to India. They value the relationship with India. European Union is now talking about having an active, dynamic and mutually beneficial relationship with India. But it's on small points, big points for us, but for them they consider it small. For issues like this where they maintain double standards, and Dr. Jaishankar has really, been very pointed, and he's hit the nail on the head in calling them out on these issues.
Yes, let me in fact also quickly bring in Dr. Sharat Kohli in at this point. Dr. Kohli, doublespeak of the West, has been there for very long, in fact, time immemorial, but it's time one called them out for it, and that's exactly what our External Affairs Minister has done. What do you make about the message that he sent out, and also the plain speak economics that he's pointed out as well?
Absolutely. Good evening, Uday, to you, my fellow panelists and the NewsX viewers. I think this is hypocrisy, and the reason for hypocrisy, of course, there's no denying the hypocrisy, first of all. But one of the reasons for hypocrisy is that Europe itself is quite disintegrated. It may look like European Union to you, it may look like NATO to you, but the fact of the matter is, if you deal with these countries individually, they've got their own set of issues, and you often find them not united the way the world sees them. That's one. I mean, there is a pipeline, I remember, it's called Druzhba pipeline. This goes from Hungary and Slovakia, to Russia for supply. It's more on gas rather than oil, but then obviously energy is energy. And when you're talking of another country, you should be cautious of the fact that you're dealing with Russia more than anybody else, and you never stopped dealing. You may have reduced it, but I think it wasn't about the volume. It was about whether you need to deal or you don't need to deal. So they may have reduced the volumes. If you look at the numbers ever since the war broke off in 2022, the numbers have gone down. But countries like Slovakia, countries like Hungary, they have hardly reduced. So I really don't see, Uday, a very, very united Europe for that matter. I mean, we can talk of Europe as Europe, but when you deep dive into the whole organization or I would say the bunch, it's not really as united. So that's one of the reasons. And the other reason, I mean, first of all, I mean, what right does one country has to say you don't buy from here, you don't buy from there? I thought the sovereignty of every country is paramount. And in the modern times, they've got no right. I mean, if America gives us permission to buy oil from Russia, it says, okay, fine, you can buy it for a month or 2 months. Who's America to ask us to buy or not to buy for that matter? Our sovereignty is supreme, and we don't have to yield. We are not in the era of slavery. We are not in 17th or 18th century when, the world was ruled by these powers from here and there. I think we moved on from there. They still seem to be in that colonial era. We are not in that era. No part of the world is in that era. So I really feel that respecting the sovereignty of countries, first of all, these kind of comments by Europe should not have been made, and a very fitting reply coming from Jaishankar. I mean, he's been known, our Minister of External Affairs has been known for straight talking. He's a bundle of diplomacy, coupled with straight talking when needed. Sometimes being too diplomatic doesn't convey the message. So it's good to be very direct at this point of time. And people who live in glass houses today should not be throwing stones at others, is all I would like to say.
Okay. Major General Sudhakarji, this is, of course, something that we've seen now, the sanctions due to the war, but it was the US which in fact wanted India to purchase Russian oil, is what S. Jaishankar is just pointing out. Now again, when we saw the war in Iran, suddenly again those sanctions were taken away, and again India was encouraged to buy Russian oil again. So what explains these flip-flops, and is every country acting in self-interest ultimately?
Uday, good evening. Thank you. Thank you for getting me for your show, and my very deep regards and warm greetings to distinguished and esteemed co-panelists. My take on the whole issue is buying and selling of any product is a commercial activity. Commercial activity, whether in 21st century or 20th century, or you go back by 1,000 years, government agencies generally, to the best of my understanding and reading, they do not participate in commercial activities unless it is government to government. Oil as a product is bought by an agency, by a company of a country, and sold by a company of another country. So to say that India has actually defied some orders, that means it is lack of knowledge or total ignorance. This has to be called out. We must compliment our Mr. Jaishankar for having shown the way. He is one person who is knowledgeable, very articulate, very expressive, polite, and he puts across things in the right perspective. There is a need to call out our perspective and tell people what we mean. Now, there is a requirement with regard to your question which you have asked. Why is USA doing what it is doing? Initially they started with Iran. At one point in time, we had 17% of our total import of crude oil coming from Iran. They used to give us a discount of 40 to 60% discount of crude oil. And this is a good oil. I'm told it's called a soft oil, something comparable with the Texas. I really don't know. I don't have the finer knowledge about this, but there is to comparable. And doorstep next door. So from 17%, we have come down to 0. And soon after that, Venezuela, they said, no, you can't buy oil from Venezuela. And thereafter, there was a criticality. The European countries, they are pushed towards Middle East in order to diversify from Russia. because the war had started. Russia had invaded. When the European countries came to Middle East, the convenient, actually, the customer was India to be pushed out, because we were outbidded then. And if India was pushed out, it was not the tacit, I would say. I wish India had taken a formal kind of, if not directive, some kind of a communication from America, because it was with the concurrence of the leadership of the American hierarchy that India switched its basket to Russia. This has to be understood, and this has to be put across in multiple platforms and forms, not only by verbal communication, because if a lie is spoken more than once or more than 7 times, by the systemic process of transactional analysis, it becomes truth. Nobody can change a lie becoming a truth. So therefore, timely rebuttals and representations and protests have to be launched by multiple means. It's not by verbal. Something in writing, a psychological warfare, need be information warfare, should be actually undertaken by country. But the question which you are raising is that, is it actually America wanting India, wanted to subject India to some kind of harassment? No. The hidden agenda behind all this is that after having shifted to Russia, bought oil for, let's say, 1 year, 1.5 or 2 years till 2024, it came to light that India was buying oil in non-dollar currency. And the petrodollar was losing its weight because it converged. The quantum of oil being bought by India from Russia went up from less than 1%, that is prior to 24th February 2022, to the peak period was 41%, was in September 2024. And around that time, sometime in June, July 2024, it is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, on termination of that 50-year agreement of Brent crude oil 1973, or whenever it was signed, on termination of 50th year, he made a public announcement that any country anywhere in the world is welcome to come and buy oil in any currency other than dollar. So convergence of certain, if you join the dots, then what actually was emerged? And China was buying oil from Venezuela, 86% of the total produce, and at a discount of 50 to 60%, paying money yuan in yuan, or it was on credit, because the BRI was expanding like anything. So all these things put together, America was in jitters with a mounting debt.
Yes.
$5 trillion was the debt in 2005. Suddenly in 2024, it came to something close to 34 trillion. Now it is 39 trillion.
Right.
So they were shaken up. So they thought the petrodollar was losing the relevance and the value, that with that they had attained the status of a superpower.
Okay.
They would be losing that status. Therefore,
absolutely. Which is why they had to take these steps. Avantika Kansal, let me quickly draw you in here on, of course, the trigger. What was the trigger for the Foreign Minister of India to make these statements at this forum abroad? Of course, he's not, been shy of calling out the West doublespeak and hypocrisy earlier too. But what was the fresh trigger at this juncture? What do you read between the lines into what he said and why he said it?
Thank you, Uday, for having me here, first of all. So the trigger, as to what I see, was what our external minister did was actually very brutally putting it out, what was not being said from many, many years, but it was there. It was happening, it was continuously going forward here and there. Say, for an example, if we talk about the oil taking from Russia. Earlier, it was Middle East. Then India was asked to take oil from Russia. And then the tariff was laden, and then ultimately the tariff was taken off. Now, this policy is definitely only helping one country, one nation. It has nothing to do with India, and India here is going up and down. So that was something which needs to be called in. Also, let's talk about Europe. Europe in so many years has directly, indirectly supplied weapons to the countries which have been in attack, in border conflict with India. Now here, India is a country which has not started any attack, has not taken on any attack, has not gone and started saying that, this is the country, this is what they are doing, and we should attack. But at the same time, these countries, and specifically if we talk about China War 1962 or Pakistan War 1965, 1971, 1999, everywhere European weapons were definitely they were into the picture, and without Europe or without US, the Pakistan or China would not have been in this capacity per se. Even if we talk about today's day and age, it continues in a different manner, but it is very much there. And that is why this thing had to be called out, because India is a sovereign nation. They cannot put India behind. They cannot unnecessarily try to put India down. Someone had to address it, and that is where S. Jaishankar comes in, and he addressed it very well. And now the Western world knows, hopefully they would know, that India is not here to just see and not speak. They are here, they are taking steps, they are understanding, they are putting their foot down, and it's a strong nation which they cannot unnecessarily fiddle with. Also, very important thing here, whatever our external minister mentioned, it is because it is about country's interest. It is about 1.4 billion people's interest. It is about thinking about nation first, and then rest of the world. And here he has made it very clear that our nation, our country, that comes first, and then comes the interest of entire Western world.
And this comes at a time when there are fresh tariffs which are being mulled by the United States, Sumit Peer. This comes at a time when the tensions in the Strait of Hormuz are not ending, despite talks of a deal. Its lack of finality, and these fresh attacks, of course, once again are raising various questions and anger against the West. It also comes at a time when the supply chains are completely being disrupted.
Udayji, thank you very much for having me on your show. What has happened today, there are two myths which are shattered today, and compliments to Dr. Jaishankar for that. The first myth is that some people in Europe are still in the hallucination that is the world of after the World War II, because today's world order is after the World War II, where Europe and America were at the center stage. And even if you look at the P5 membership, it was divided between the Europe and the America. So that is how they think the world order is. Europe still hallucinates that we determine how the world will run and how the world will be determined. It's apathy, it's a tyranny that having 20% of the global population, we are not a P5 member. And there is a small country called Finland who has the audacity to go and lecture my external affairs minister what to do. We have to buy the oil for 1.45 billion people. And you expect him to answer to your questions and to be subservient to your whims and fancies. That is the kind of perpetual hallucination you live in. And that is the paranoia you face, because the world order is shattered. What did Mr. Jaishankar do today? What I compliment him from, so far India has been defending. We would say it's our right. We have 1.45 billion people. We determine where to buy oil, from whom to buy oil, at what price to buy oil. It's none of your business. Go and fly a kite. That's what we'd say in a very polite and a diplomatic way. Now Mr. Jaishankar crosses the line and starts hitting back. And that is what the external affairs minister of a very powerful country like India should do. Say, forget the oil, guys. You have been goddamn supplying weapons to our enemies, which have been used against us every war we have fought. You are telling me, why are you buying oil from Russia, wherein Ukraine is not your war? Ukraine is your, godly ladai. You adapted that war. And here, my enemies like Pakistan and others who have used these weapons to attack and kill my soldiers, who are directly supplying them, and you have the honesty, you have the gumption to come and question me that. I mean, which land of earth do you live in? Which part of the world do you live in? Do you live in Andromeda? Have you lost your sense? And the journalist is saying, can you elaborate? I cannot understand. Either the person is an amateur, or they are on some kind of a opium. I don't know what they are on. How the hell you don't know what is happening? The question here is, you do not question India. You have no loci here. You cannot tell us where to buy. We are the fastest growing economy today. We are the world's most populous country today. And our economy and our sovereignty and our democracy is the hope to the world with all the global turmoil happening. And when we are there, you are a very chota mota country. And you come and tell me, oh, Mr. Jaishankar, why are you buying oil from him? Do you think Mr. Jaishankar or Mr. India as a republic is answerable to Finland, or he's answerable to? No, he's not. So where does this thought and where does this thought process comes from? This comes from what Dr. Kohli rightly said is the colonial hangover. वो गोरे आदमी की supremacy. You think you could come, you could dominate, you could ask question. When the matter of fact remains, it's America or anybody. Americans, you never gave us the permission to buy the oil. You pleaded to us, buy the oil. You pleaded to us, buy the oil, because we want to control the oil prices. We don't want countries to go bankrupt. We don't want America to go up. Mr. India, please go and buy the oil, because we want the oil prices to be controlled. And that is why we did a favor to the world. I've been saying this for the last 3 years, 4 years. We did a favor to the world by buying Russian oil. Yes, they give us cheap, they give us on non-rupee terms, and that is the way to do. So when it comes to India's sovereignty, when it comes to India's foreign policy, we believe in strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy is not governed by anybody's illusions, delusions. You might have an opinion, but sir, sorry, you don't have a vote. Let that be loud and clear to you, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. You have no right to question, and I think it's charitable of Dr. Jaishankar to even answer your question. If it's somebody else, he might not even bother to answer the question.
Yes.
Do you have the assumption to go and talk this to the Marco Rubio or talk this to the Trump and ask him, why are you attacking Iran? Why are you putting a blockade? Where does the European hypocrisy go there? When the Trump calls you, come and help me with the NATO, you are not going there. There's a lot of fighting happening between Europe and Americans within the NATO, and you're kept on all along, and you're found, oh, now I ride the moral high horse. Let me question Dr. Jaishankar. Sir, why are you buying the Russian oil? That talks about your mental bankruptcy. That talks about the very limited knowledge and the delusional world which you live in. And I would strictly advise you, have some black Americano coffee and get out of the illusion. Thanks, Uday.
Right. Ambassador Sikri, at the end of the day, of course, this lecturing still continues, be it on press freedom through these bizarre random indexes, be it, of course, on human rights through fictional reports, or be it through what we should buy and who we should buy it from and when we should buy it as well. Why does this lecturing continue? Even in the era that we live in, where it is a globalized world and a new world order.
Absolutely. I think Dr. Jaishankar's statements epitomize very well and characteristically well India's own success in its policy of strategic autonomy, which has led to a multi-alignment. Now we are not dependent on any one country or group of countries or any one power. We have our own strategic autonomy. We are prepared to talk to countries on the basis of mutual interest. If we have an interest, then they also must have an interest, and there must be mutual benefit. There cannot be this one-sided benefit that you think that you can lecture India on buying oil, but on the other hand, you can give weapons to India, to countries who then are using those weapons to attack India. So I think calling out this issue, like he's done in Finland and then earlier also he done, is exactly.
And this is a fact. This is a fact, Major General Sudhakarji, isn't it? These weapons have been misused, whereas Indian weapons have never been misused.
Absolutely, Uday, spot on. First of all, India's Make in India concept started off sometime in 2020, if I'm not wrong, after the pandemic had struck. Otherwise, we started manufacturing the products, defense products since then, and it is just about now only we have started making profits. And it's very rarely we had any weapon system going out of the subcontinent on export scale to any country. So therefore it goes without saying that weapons are a secondary issue, but I tend to agree with all the speakers, and particularly Sumit, that lecturing must stop. And lecturing, and I would compliment our Minister of External Affairs for having called out. And this issue must be taken up, because Finland is a country with whom we are trying to negotiate and also go in. It is member of the EFTA country, if I'm not wrong, or one of the countries, at least European Union, with which the free trade is also being spoken about. We are trying to negotiate for many other things, because this particular issue or the myth has to be dispelled. Otherwise, this lie will become truth very soon. But one point, if you allow me, that America, that you raised the issue, America also needs to be told that it is Putin. In one of the official and formal meetings, he had made a public declaration,
yes,
or at least disclosure,
okay,
that post 20 January 2025,
okay,
after Donald Trump came to his office second time, the trade volume between USA and Russia had taken a jump.
Absolutely. I'm out of time. 30 seconds, Sharad Kohli. At this juncture, how crucial is it for market realities to dictate a policy of countries and not moral lectures and not pressure by anyone?
Well, I'll give you the dark reality, where this is coming from, because their economies, European economies, because me and my team analyze the economies across the world, their economies are going towards being dead. The GDP growth rates of 0.2%, 0.7%, the truth is that they are in recession. And this is out of frustration. They cannot tolerate Indian growth rate of 7%, 7.5% to 8%. They are wondering how this land of snake charmers is growing at 8%. And they cannot tolerate that. And, if they are riding the EU-India deal, I must tell you here that Europe needs the India deal with India more than India needs the Europe deal, because they've run out of markets. They don't know where to go. They are cornered by China. On the contrary, what is happening with the US, we know that their relations are at an all-time low. This is simply frustration, Uday, and nothing more than that.
All right. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion. We're out of time. We're slipping into a short break. Thanks to viewers for being with us as well.